It's almost like they stubbed their toe. It's like you're walking too fast, and I think you stubbed your toe here, and people see it. We know that they nerfed it. They're purposely rerouting Opus 4.7 to lower models for certain tasks for cost reasons. If you're paying for it, you deserve to get to use the newest model, not to be possibly secretly rerouted down to a lower model. That should be a user choice. A few examples floating on the internet now of certain tasks that, for example, Opus 4.5, 4.6 were better at than 4.7.
What Anthropic are really good at doing is flooding the zone. There's all these releases all the time that it becomes almost impossible to keep on top of what's going on.
Someone was just having a chat with Opus 4.7 and asked, oh, so you're the newest best thing right now? And it basically replied with, yeah, like I'm Sonnet, whatever number.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Slow Takes. As usual, I'm Sam Illingworth from Slow AI, and I'm joined by...
Hello, I am Tired Lior from Exploring ChatGPT.
Do you want to tell folks why you're tired, Leo? You don't have to.
Yeah, it's fine. I got a 2.5-year-old and got a new baby, so it's like a crying match at night. We'll make it through.
Congrats to Leo for absolutely powering through. I'm going to be leading with a couple of big Claude stories. The first one is around Opus 4.7. So Opus 4.7 is the latest frontier model from Claude, replaces Opus 4.6. For context, there's also Sonnet and Haiku as well, which are not quite as powerful. This was launched on the 16th of April, 2026. And to the usual fanfare of it's a 13% lift over Opus 4.6 on a 39 task coding benchmark, an 87.6% score on SWE bench verified, vision capacity raised from 1.15 to 3.75 megapixels, and a new X high effort level sitting between high and max. What's not to love about this, right? I'll tell you what's not to love about this. It's obviously got better, but two things that are really important here to watch. One, it didn't launch with the same cybersecurity details that was in the Mythos version that got leaked a couple of weeks ago that we talked about. The reason being for that basically is that they say we can't be trusted as just an average customer. It's because it's insanely expensive and they want to save that for their enterprise model. The second thing that's really important that nobody is talking about, the price did not go up. So I'm Pro Max user, probably costs about $130 a month. The price didn't go up, a bit more than that, sorry. But what did increase was the token count. So broadly speaking, if I want to do a task, it now takes, I think, 1.4, maybe 1.3 times as many tokens to do that same task. So even in a Pro Max account, you have a maximum number of tokens you can use. Just to break it down a bit more, according to your account use, you have a certain number of tokens which you can use within an AI tool. Every single task takes a certain amount of those tokens. So if Claude increases the number of tokens per task, what that means is you can do less tasks within your allowed limits. So then you need to buy add-ons and stuff like that. So my two takes for this is that one, 4.7, yeah, is a slight improvement on 4.6, but they haven't shipped all of the stuff that's actually available. Why? And two, they're basically making us pay more for something that does things slightly better and less efficiently. So yeah, I would love to hear your take on that, Leo.
Yeah, it's a great take. It's funny. It's like you think you're caught up, and there's like a new release every 24 hours at this point. Mostly Anthropic. So I could at least say that. Again, marketing, fantastic. But this time, I think I don't know what the best way to say this. It's almost like they stubbed their toe. It's like you're walking too fast, and I think you stubbed your toe here, and people see it. I will say shout out to Chris from Toxic, right away, because we spoke about this in our last stream. And what I'm about to mention to you right now was information that he gave me, TOXSEC on Substack. So apparently there's kind of two options here that happened based on this. So we know that they nerfed it. It's supposed to be like a public friendly version of Mythos, right? So they nerfed its cybersecurity capabilities to make sure the public can't do something crazy with it. And so there's two things that possibly happened here. A, because they weakened it, that had some other basically negative effects on how this model performs. And the other option is, which is this is a rumor. There's no evidence to this. So I'll just mention that before I say it, that they're purposely rerouting Opus 4.7 to lower models for certain tasks for cost reasons. Now, obviously, that's a problem. If there's any truth to that, because Sam mentioned this is also a cost issue. If you're paying, like Sam, Pro, Max, whatever, $200 a month, and they release a new model, you want to, and whatever you're doing, I don't care. I don't care if you're using it to write your emails, even though you probably shouldn't be using Opus 4.7 to write your emails. Like use Sonnet, right? Like whatever. If you're paying for it, you deserve to get to use the newest model, not to be possibly secretly rerouted down to a lower model. That should be a user choice, not something that's done behind the scenes. And again, there's no evidence to back this up. But the reason that people are thinking this is because there is a few examples floating on the internet now of certain tasks that, for example, Opus 4.5, 4.6 were better at than 4.7. Again, that could be a result of an unintentional, because they weakened cybersecurity aspects of it, that it had other effects. When you're working with AI, you try to fix something else breaks. In this case, they broke something and something else. It's like the opposite type of idea. Um, and there was another example where someone was just having a chat with Opus 4.7 and asked and basically said to it, "Oh, so you're the newest best thing right now." And it basically replied with, "Yeah," something along the lines of, "Yeah, like I'm Sonnet whatever number," which could have been a hallucination. So that's my take on the whole Opus 4.7.
That's really interesting. And yeah, I guess the black box nature of these tools means that how do we know if that's ever happening? There's some great advice from Walker and people in the chat. If you are using like the proprietary, like best top of class models to do basic tasks, maybe use another model instead. And then even if you're using it for really complex work, maybe use a more basic model first with a much lower token count in order to help you do this. You'd use Haiku for checking an email. You'd use Sonnet for, I don't know, doing some like basic web-based research. I don't think many people need to be using Opus that often, to be honest. I use it for pretty intense qualitative research, and I probably don't need to use Opus. I'd probably get away with Sonnet or something like that. So just a reminder to people to check how you're actually using it. And again, don't buy into the hype. Also, it's come up in the chat a few times. I think what Anthropic are really good at doing is flooding the zone. There's all these releases all the time that it becomes almost impossible to keep on top of what's going on. And my worry is that they're maybe going to slip something through that we're not too happy about. And like we've mentioned Toxic, also like Daria from AI Blew My Mind, Caro from like Product with Attitude. These people are not sleeping at the moment because they're testing all these models for us, which I'm super grateful for. And that takes us on to our second story, because Opus 4.7 dropped on Thursday last week. And then the next day, Claude Design appeared. And I was like, what on earth is this? Okay. So this is story number 2. So for people who haven't tried it, Claude Design is like a research version of a new product that Anthropic are trying out. And how I would describe it is a cross between Figma and Canva. It's an opportunity for people to build wireframes, create design products. It's not fully image generation yet, but what it is, you can create slide decks with it. I've used it to create a design book based on my style sheets for Slow AI, etc. And again, it's another tool that Claude are doing. They're obviously trying to just, I think, cannibalize the entire software as a solution or SaaS industry. There are a couple of things that are definitely worth noting here. Number one, Mike Krieger is the chief product officer of Anthropic, and he's also the co-founder of Instagram. Now, Mike sat on the Figma board for like several years. And on Monday last week, he resigned from Figma. And then on Thursday of last week or Friday of last week, Claude Design dropped. In the same day, the Figma shares like dropped by 7%. So for me, there's a huge conflict of interest. People often say that CTOs, CPOs, whatever, sit on various boards as a governance issue, but I'm not saying insider trading, but it looks like you can have it obvious tell as to what's happening and getting that information. So that's one thing to bear in mind. The second thing is that it's very early days, but I think that Claude Design is a precursor for image generation in Claude. I think it's going to be happening in 2 or 3 months. And that's just going to be insane because I can do, speaking for myself, I can do pretty much everything I need from AI in Claude, apart from image generation, which I then have to route out to Gemini, Nano, Banana using an API and a Claude agent. I think that's going to change. And I think this is the first step on that process as well. And then a bit further down the line as well, I think this is building up to an IPO in October. I think Claude are going to go public, or Anthropic are going to go public. So yeah, that's my take on it. That basically there's this really dodgy conflict of interest. That Claude Design looks amazing, but it's actually probably a signal for image generation, and then later down the line an IPO as well. Yeah, would love to know your take on that, Leo.
Yeah, absolutely agree about the IPO as well. So I think graphic design is a very interesting job to look at in terms of AI job replacement, because it might actually be one of the jobs that really might become irrelevant. I hope not. It seems like now, and I saw what you created on Slow AI with Claude Design. It's beautiful. So yeah, it's tough to say. It seems like probably 90% of the work is already out the window. I think there still could be some individual, like human creativity side to it that will separate certain individuals in the graphic design industry. But just to take this down that road of if tools like this get so good where graphic designers, for example, become completely irrelevant, what does that world really look like? And in general as well. And I wanted to make that kind of crossover. It's not entirely a tangent, but just to say, this is one of the examples where I truly think graphic designers could be in trouble. And if you've seen our previous streams, I'm actually on the opposite side of the spectrum of the AI doomers that say like, no one's going to work anymore. I don't really see that happening. I think history will repeat itself. I made the comparison to agriculture in the past, where 90% of people used to be farmers. Machines replaced them. People still work. And I think with AI in the workplace, for example, with graphic designers, they might just need to redefine what that job actually means when these tasks can be automated. So now instead of doing the rough friction type of work, the task becomes frictionless, but we might have to redefine what that job means. And I actually had an article about this recently, too. One which was more focused on these IPOs, and the more recent one yesterday, which was actually focused on valuations. And it ties into this directly because if you look at some of these valuation charts that are coming out for OpenAI, Anthropic that are planning IPOs, valuations are insane. OpenAI, I think it's like $1 trillion. And the only reason that might make sense, and this is the scary part, is they're not valuing growth. They're valuing actual replacement of the entire job market, which in the US, for example, is $15 trillion. So if that's the case, and let's say we get some form of AGI, which in the beginning will be able to replace basically all computer work, for example, and then later down the line we get robots with AGI brains and actual physical bodies that can also do blue collar work. Yeah, that might be a problem. So basically, if you think OpenAI is actually worth 1 trillion in their IPO, which I don't, not a financial advisor, but if they IPO at 1 trillion, my shorts are on. So basically, I'd be happy to see them drop down to reality
Yeah,
because they're basically just pricing in we're going to replace the entire workforce. So
for sure, man. And I think Colleen makes a really good point here where she says, hi, Colleen Kennedy, graphic design as we know it is over, but you still need instincts and taste. And I think that's the key thing, right? I think two things. You can't really use Claude Design unless you know what you want and what you need. So I put together a product page that looks really good actually for Slow AI, but that's because I'd spent months building up markdown files of what my style guides were and what I wanted to have, like mainly inspired by a really great Substacker called AI Meets Girl Boss, which I've put into the Substack there. So I think that, yeah, jobs are going to change, but there's still always going to be that human need that we need to have as well. And as Ben says, interior designers don't paint the wall and make the end product, but taste and understanding the customer position is so important. And I think there'll be that pushback against or push forward for the human experience, right? Which will then be a premium, which costs more money. The other thing I want to point to, there's a great comment here from Chad. Hey, Chad Thiel. Chad says that he's pro multi-model. Find the models that do the things you want to do really well as cheap as they can. And image gen is interesting because likely every model gives a different vibe. I really am with this, Chad. The reason being as well that if you throw all your eggs into one basket, I'm a hypocrite because I use Claude for most things, but I do have a backup plan. What happens when Claude suddenly, or Anthropic, or Chat, or OpenAI, or Google increase the price tenfold? And there was a great example last week as well of a software company where they don't know why, but they'd suddenly breached Anthropic's terms and conditions and they got locked out of using Anthropic. And so suddenly their entire dev team was like, what do we do? We've been using Claude Code for everything. So I think having a multi-model approach is really smart. And then also it's really important to consider the human taste that's there. Like just going into Claude Design and saying, make me a brief for, I don't know, Sam Illingworth's new career as a Korean pop star, like just wouldn't make any sense and everything would just come back looking completely whack. There needs to be like actual thought and process that goes into it. And I think that translation between human and machine is going to be really integral.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a trillion bucks just makes me laugh, man. There's no way to float like that.
I just want to touch on Chad's point there, multi-model. I completely agree. And I will just say this jokingly, obviously, it's probably not true. I know Sam a little bit now. I think I consider him a friend. So I know where he's coming from. I'm just going to say this as just like this is the opposite of the truth. Sam's backed up his rock. And the reason I say this is this. Chad's point it's a great point. And I have a funny example I'll just mention before we roll on to the next topic. I do weekly streams with other creators, Chris from Toxic and Daniel Nest from Why Try AI. And when I'm making the YouTube videos, I use Nano Banana 2 for my thumbnails, which I found to be the best. For some reason, Gemini was on the down detector. It was just like so many people were using it. You can use it. And I was running into some glitches. And so I asked it, like, what do you see in this photo? Because I used like an original kind of like screenshot almost from the stream before I generate the thumbnail. And so I posted the photo of Daniel and I and asked it, what do you in the photo? And it said, I see the original painting of the Mona Lisa. That was the glitch that I had. So I think it's important to like multi-model is important because it's not just maybe cost wise. If one model doesn't work at any certain moment, you might want to have other options.
That's fair, man. And I just, people who don't know, Leo is absolutely joking. I've never used Grok in my life. No, what I.
Also, I tried it when Gemini was broken. I downloaded it and I got the 3-day free trial. And the image generator wasn't bad. It wasn't as good as Nano Banana 2, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's just I honestly think there's going to be an image generator coming with Claude as well, in which case, again, we'll need to really think carefully about using those multi-models. The other thing as well is if you rely totally on one model, as Leo was saying that even inside the joke, what happens when it goes down? Like Claude goes down regularly, of course it does. And if you're only relying on that one model, like for doing like really important work, like beyond generating silly images, like what do you do? So I think it makes a lot of sense to have multi-models as backups and just exploring that. And again, my tip for everyone would be to download an open source large language model onto your home laptop or PC and work out how to use it. Like, I promise you can do most things with like Gamma 4, which is like Google's free, like open source large language model. You can do most things with that you're ever going to need. So I would just recommend people doing that. I've written an article about it, but just check that out. Okay, third story. For me, this is the wildest story, okay? Tinder and Zoom are now piloting a proof of humanity verification in which users scan an iris to confirm they are not a bot. Now, this is passed through a company called World Network, which is an identity project spun out of Sam Altman's WorldCoin. So Sam Altman, CEO, like co-founder of OpenAI. He also has this company called WorldCoin that he talks about a lot. And how do I say this? In the most measured way possible, it's a way of identifying people and storing your identity through retina scanning. And then this organization stores it and uses it for whatever reasons it may choose to use. So the story really here is that Zoom and Tinder are now exploring using Bitcoin as a way of checking your retina on the scan to make sure you're a human, not a deep fake, not a bot, not anything, not like a facial mask or anything like that. I think this is crazy, like for two reasons. One, like the surveillance level Chad, it sounds exactly like a Black Mirror episode. They will have your retina scan for life. Like it is, they want your data. They want to store that data and they're simulating something that I don't think is that much of an issue. There's ways around testing if someone is an AI agent or if someone's human. That the best thing to check is motor neuron skills. So it's not holding up three fingers. It's seeing, I've got some headphones here. Can I manipulate these headphones quite straightforwardly using my hands? Yes, because I'm a human being. Like that kind of fine motor neuron skills is an easy way of checking if someone is human or not. So if people are ever worried, that's how I'd recommend. I'd say hold something up and play with it. And that's a great way of checking. You don't need retina scans. And for me, this is a way of people wanting your ID for slightly nefarious reasons. But yeah, would love your take on that, Leo.
Actually, I agree that you don't need it. There's other ways to verify. I'll just throw that out there first. I actually agree with you 100%. It's interesting because we always talk about the new tools coming along with AI, but we don't talk too much about the reality that comes with AI basically creating a new reality where you have to prove that you're human. Interesting world. By the way, I hear a little feedback.
I'm good, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
that's such a good point. The like default now is that you're not human. And Leo, like you're absolutely right. Not even like the retina scanning. Like when you're reading text now, like especially on LinkedIn and Substack as well, so much time people are instant and in academia, the default is that's been written by a bot. And then you have this whole like cognitive offloading and thinking, I'm going to spend time working out if this was written by a human or a bot without. So it's like, why aren't we assuming people are humans to start with? I just want to say that Ben, the readers and listeners, maybe not you, but they're way smarter than me and they come up with really clever ideas. Ben's got a great suggestion that pretty sure cryptographic proof based on an iPhone Face ID would work and could be stored locally on an iPhone. Hell yes, it could. That would still make some people uncomfortable as well because they don't want to know where that information gets stored. And I totally respect that. But you can definitely store this information locally without uploading it to Sam Altman's World coin, however he's going to use that.
Yeah. I will just add too, I think this kind of, for me, points out why the free market vision is so important. Because if you don't like it, just don't use Zoom and Tinder. Hopefully this doesn't become everything and everybody. Then that's going to be a real problem. We don't want to go down that road. But if you don't like it, I think it's actually like a net negative for Zoom, for example. There's so many other options.
I think that's a great point. And I think it's going to put people off using those platforms. I'm saying this with all sincerity. I've never used Tinder. I'm of an age where I didn't really need it or have an interest in it. So I can't really speak from it. But there are other platforms that are available. And I think that, especially with a dating app, I think people are going to be massively drawn towards that human connection. And we see with Gen Z and like the even younger people as well, they really want that humanity. They're pushing back against AI. They're pushing back against AI because they're not being consulted. And if you're not consulted about something, you have no agency. Exactly like you say, Leo, there is a free market here and people walk with their feet. And I wonder if Tinder are like themselves falling into a trap of FOMO, of trying to solve a problem that isn't actually a problem. And in doing so, will drive loads of people away onto other apps where there's a level of humanity or trust.
Right.
And again, catfishing, all this stuff, like rocking up and someone looking different to what they look like, grooming at the other more nefarious end. This stuff's all existed prior to AI, right? And you just need to critically ask yourself, is there actually a problem that needs to be solved here? Or are people using this as a way to get across legislation and changes for their own nefarious means. And yet, just touches on the chat, returning to Grok, isn't Elon Musk being called in front of the Paris Public Prosecutor's Office today due to Grok child sexual imagery? And yeah, I think he is. Um, that whole topic that we discussed like a few weeks back, which is very disturbing, also was in the new. This isn't a news story, so I'm just throwing this to you on you, Leo. This is not in our running order, but basically what happened this week as well was that Apple decided that they were going to push back against XAI in the App Store until Grok was able to say that it wasn't using child imagery in the way that it has been doing. So the content moderation decision made by Apple, rather than legislation, rather than law, I find it insane because one, Apple are the good guys all of a sudden. And two, it's an app store manager or collection of people who are making a decision rather than the chief prosecution officer or something like that. Yeah. I'm throwing that on the fly, sorry, but it's just linked to that story. It was quite
No, I like that. I don't think everything has to go to government. I think that's also, we spoke about this in a previous stream, like why does Meta, for example, need to make their own AI? It's because when you, like Apple's one of Apple's biggest moats is the App Store. So they have a lot of control over that and they can do things like this without this being taken to a court of law. They can make these decisions and put Grok on the spot. Yeah.
No, exactly. And that moat, again, slightly off topic, but that moat is going to be really interesting because I've reflected since we had that discussion last week about how much Meta's throwing money at the AI issue. Because Meta's moat is so huge in terms of like its actual operating software, in terms of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, I think it's probably going to succeed with AI now. Because, like you say, it can just say we're only using this AI tool on these platforms, which is it's a pretty good bargaining chip.
Yeah.
Okay, after having gone off topic several times, but with still relevant news, going on to our fourth news story this week. So this is really interesting. This is about Microsoft. So on the 17th of April, so I think the same day that Claude Design launched, Microsoft rolled out, get ready for this, very catchy title, Windows 11 build 26200.8313 to the review preview channel. Now, this build includes an agentic taskbar. And so what happens is that, so basically this is the new version of Windows. If it launches as suspected, instead of, as well as like a search bar, there's going to be an agentic taskbar. So you can have like at agent, whatever you call it, go and find me all of the information that you can on Sam Illingworth, and agent two, write a diss track about Sam Illingworth and publish it on Spotify. I don't know why you do that. They're just two examples. But what's again super interesting here is that the plumbing, so how it's all set up, is Model Context Protocol, which is the open agent standard that Anthropic launched and every major provider now supports. So Microsoft, people diss Copilot again. Microsoft with Open 365 have a huge moat, which means that I would say probably the most people in the world, AI that they're using, apart from ChatGPT, is probably Copilot because it's baked into their work. But they are now using like the plumbing, the system that was designed by Anthropic for an AI agent, which is again just making Anthropic even more valuable. And also, all of a sudden, someone is anti-AI or doesn't really understand what AI is. They buy a new laptop, they've got Windows 11 installed on it, and there's this search bar, and then they're using agentic tools. I think this was a huge story. And yeah, we'd just love to hear your take on that as well.
I think it's awesome. I really do think that this is going to be one of those things in the future where people say, how do we live without this? Great topic. Thank you for bringing it up. And I think also somewhere in this topic you mentioned, like for now, and that it would be optional, but what happens when it's not? And the weird thing about that question is, I don't know exactly what that would look like or what that would mean. Because an agent, until you actually give it a task or a goal to accomplish, it's not going to take any action. So if it's not optional, does that mean that it's not optional in terms of sitting on your living taskbar? Whatever. Either way, I think it's great. And I'll add as well, and this is in Microsoft's own words in this topic. I think this is something most people can get along with here. So we all know what happens what can go wrong when you let an agent, in Microsoft's own words, execute without your intervention. That's a problem. It's one of those human in the loop type of topics as well. You need to have certain controls over your agents. A lot of people just let them take free reign and do everything, and that causes a lot of problems. For example, I can simplify it like this. If you've ever sent an email, let's say with a Dropbox folder, and you give someone viewer permission only, and they can't edit that file, it would almost be like if you give an agent free reign to execute without your own human controls. You can have something that's, for example, on view, but it will go out of that basically information that you're giving it or rules that you're setting, and it can execute on something that you want to be view only. It can edit if you're not very specific with your context. And then basically, what else did I have here? I think, and this is gone. No one's really talking about it too much. Like it happened, it's here, and no one's mentioning it. NVIDIA's Nemo Claw. I think like this would be a perfect example from Microsoft. Nemo Claw, one of the special things about it, which some people pushed back on, is they set up this system where you can run OpenClaw style agents, and they start off with zero permissions. And that's very powerful at a corporate level because if you're doing this at scale, you need to start with zero permissions and then work your way up from there, which means in the beginning, your agent's going to come back to you and ask you, can I do this? Is this okay? And it's going to be a slow, grueling process until you actually have it safe and secure where they're not going to execute on tasks that you didn't want them to. So I think maybe we'll see that happen, a partnership between Microsoft and NVIDIA where they can set up their agents using a Nemo Cloud style system.
That's a great point. Some really great points in the discussion as well. Like Chad Teal, you are welcome back anytime. You are dropping some fantastic truth bombs in here. So Chad puts that and this is, I would go along with this, predicts that much of AI will fall into the background as an intelligence layer and will mostly use it through tools built for the needs of our work, aka software. Exactly that. So when we're using a future version of Excel, we won't have to plug in the Claude plugin, tell it to do various things. It will just do it automatically as part of that system, and we'll have the guardrails, the security baked into it. So I think that's definitely what's going to happen. And the thing that we absolutely need to remind ourselves of, that Chad and Ben both talk about, 9 out of 10 professionals have no idea what an agent is. I think this all the time. Like everyone on this call is way ahead of the curve in terms of even talking about AI agents, let alone using them. And it's very easy to get caught up in that FOMO. And in reality, it's not people are going to be using AI agents themselves in every single aspect of the workforce because people don't understand them or the nuance behind them. And in many instances, speaking honestly, people shouldn't be trusted with them either. So actually what's going to be happening is it'll be baked into the software and it will just be an element of it. And hopefully people will have the required training. But this just comes to me now. It's a bit like email, right? You can get caught with a phishing scam in email. And I work at a university. We all have to receive training on how to not get caught up by phishing scams in using email. Because what's happened in the past is that people have sent an email and it's got a, hey, we want to talk to you about something. Click on this link. You click on this link and then it gives the nefarious agents, prior to AI even, access to your university's data, and then it creates a ransomware attack, which can lead to like really serious implications. That's prior to AI. And so now we have to have compulsory training, but you can still have a lot of mistakes made with just using emails. I think a similar thing will happen with agents and with AI in general. It'll just be baked into that process. People will have to do compliance training, and then there'll be a back-end system that catches out, in academia at least, all of those lazy professors who forget to go to the compliance training and just click through on emails anyway. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what's going to happen. Cool. So going on to our last story then, very UK centric. It's very in the weeds for Leo here, but we ran a story a couple of weeks ago just about Palantir, which is this security surveillance company of which one of the co-founders, Peter Thiel, and also Alex Kerr. And basically they have Coventry City Council, which is a Labour-run council in the United Kingdom, has renewed its strategic AI platform contract with Palantir. So last year they had I think a £500,000 pilot with it, where they basically gave a load of their data to Palantir, health data to Palantir, and asked them to sort it out. There was massive outcry against this. Coventry City Council has just completely ignored this, and they've gone, let's just go ahead and we'll actually pay you £750,000 this year, which in the grand scheme of things isn't huge swathes of money. But what's worrying is that they're outsourcing the data to a software to a surveillance company. Palantir has many things going on. It's heavily involved with warfare, for example. And one of the things it's going to have access to is case notes of children and social workers as well, which again, for me, seems like a decision that's insane and that's been made by a local government without the proper consultation of the people that are involved as well. So yeah, I know that it's a very localized story, Leo, for a New York boy compared to a small council in the Midlands of the United Kingdom. But I think it has wider ramifications in terms of why are local authorities outsourcing extremely important and sensitive health information to a much larger company, which may or may not have dubious means about it.
Yeah. I think before I get into the numbers and the details of this, just my opinion, I think regardless of the company, we're seeing this a lot now with AI because there's a lot of hype around AI. And if we're talking about data and the data broker economy, like we're too far gone, guys. It's your data's out there. I don't care who you are or how private you think you are, unless you're Chris from Toxic, like your data's out there. So basically, I think people should try to, unless it's some really edge cases, this is my opinion. I think people should try to separate their ideologies from what X, Y, or Z AI company is doing. And also, at least if you are going to do that, be consistent. And the reason why I bring it back to AI hype is because this is what everyone's talking about. No one's, for this reason, no one's talking about other big tech companies or other companies in general. So if your ideologies are preventing you from using certain tools or others on an individual level or a government level, at least take a deeper look at yourself and say, what phone do I have in my pocket? Do I have an
Mm-hmm.
iPhone? Do my ideologies align with Apple and everything that they're doing? It's a $10 product that they sell for $1,000 and who knows where they're making it, how they're making it. And across the board too, it's not just in big tech. Look at the food in your pantry. Do you align with every company that you have food in your kitchen, whatever it is? At least be consistent. So if you're going to go against X, Y, or Z AI company, you should also be consistent and go against whatever it is, Burger King or Apple or
I think that's a
whatever.
great point, man. I think that's a genuinely great point. And we've talked before about whatever AI model or like big tech or company you need to make, you need to be able to make those deals with yourself, whether you feel comfortable or not using them. I think the thing that irks me with this is that this was a decision made for people, like that they were going to be with a company that has a lot of issues. And did it go to tender? Like, what was and again, if that whole system's open in like a free market, I have a lot less problem with that. 5 companies bidded for it. This company went in the cheapest. It's got the best record for safety, and we went with it. That's a very different story from we decided to go for this company and that's it. And I think that transparency about how people are using others' data is really important and something that's, again, going to be essential going forward.
Yeah. So I'll just mention if the Coventry City Council thought that this was the best tool for them, okay, great. And just to hop into the numbers here really quickly, which is funny because even though this is a UK story, I think like the similarities politicians is like it's pretty much the same, really, and how government agencies operate. And Sam and I spoke about this before in the preview room before the stream. So just the numbers are funny here. So what do I have here? Basically, their annual revenue budget is 360 million pounds, but their total yearly expenditure surpasses 700 million pounds. First of all, make that make sense. And then this deal with Palantir, yes, it's up 50% year over year. They spent £500,000 last year. Now it's 750,000 pounds. So 750,000 pounds based on their yearly expenditures represents a 0.1% of their yearly expenditures. So in the grand scheme of things, whether they use Palantir or another AI company, if this is what they thought was best, 0.1%, probably not really going to move the needle too much if they think it's going to help them be more efficient. And yeah, I think it's funny. It's like you're spending twice as much money as your budget allows. So anyway,
I did not come into this chat expecting like a New Yorker to completely diss how British councils are being run. But people on the chat who are from the UK will know that many councils, Coventry included, are basically broke from making terrible decisions. Many of them are not around AI. Most of them in the UK are actually because, which you'll find interesting, Leo, most of them because they've tried to invest in their own housing schemes and all of a sudden have realized that, oh, we know jack about housing. Yeah. So yeah, there we are. We started with Opus 4.7 and Anthropic, and we ended with taking apart parochial local government spending in the UK. What's not to love about that? Yeah, I just want to say, so Leo can throw in the YouTube link if he's got it. Leo does a load of great work every week putting us up on YouTube. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Like, some really great discussion. I'll put up a post in the next hour or so, just summarizing some of this. And people from across the globe, like at all times of night, really appreciate you being here. Please keep bringing like this level of criticality and thinking. Final reminder just to hammer the heart so that we can get a few more likes. And yeah, like massive kudos to Leo and congratulations for coming through this whole episode with basically no sleep.
Thank you.
Oh, just show me your fingers, manipulate so I can see that you're actually a real human, Leo. Do some.
Oh, yeah, here, like, the fingers I'm still
There we go.
sick, like, 1 month later, so if you've I still have probably the same tissue from last month.
So there we go. Leo's human. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Really appreciate it. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Thanks everyone. Stay safe and go slow.